I woke up staring at a chandelier that kept spinning like it couldn't decide which way was up. My head was screaming. The floor beneath me was cold marble, and somewhere behind me, someone was shouting my name, like it was a question nobody wanted the answer to. When I finally turned my head, the pain hit me so hard tears came before I could stop them. And that's when I saw it. A heavy bronze centerpiece lying a few feet away, one side smeared with something dark. My father stood over me, breathing hard, fists still shaking. 2 minutes before that, I had simply said no. Just that one word. Quiet. Calm. Final. And it burned the whole night to the ground. Let me back up, because if I drop you into that ballroom without context, none of it will make sense. My name is Vanessa. I'm 32. I work in residential construction. Not the kind that gets featured in design magazines, but the real kind. Muddy boots, sore shoulders, math you have to get right because real people are going to live inside what you build. I grew up being told that kind of work was something I'd eventually grow out of, like a phase, like bad taste in music. I never did. And honestly, I never wanted to. The person who understood that about me was my grandmother, Nana Ruth. She was the kind of woman who fixed things herself and never once complained about it. When I was maybe 9 or 10, I used to sit beside her at the kitchen table drawing little house sketches on the backs of grocery receipts. She'd look them over seriously, like they mattered, and she'd say, "Whatever you build, Vanessa, build it to last." When Nana Ruth passed, she left me a small piece of land on the edge of town. Rocky ground, wild grass, crooked old trees. My parents called it a problem. I called it a start. I spent 4 years building on that land, working construction during the week, pouring everything I had into that property on evenings and weekends. I learned how to run electrical. I figured out plumbing the hard way. There were nights I ate ramen 3 meals in a row so I could afford tile for the bathroom floor. There were weeks I was so exhausted, I'd fall asleep in my truck in the driveway before I even made it inside. But I finished it. My house, built by my hands, on land, left to me by the only person in my family who ever really saw me. My parents never visited, not once during the whole build. To them, I was always the reliable one, the steady one, which really just meant I was the one they didn't have to worry about. All the worry, all the attention, all the energy went to my younger sister, Sophia. Sophia was the dramatic one, the sensitive one, the one who always seemed to need rescuing. And my parents were always right there, ready to swoop in. So when Sophia announced her engagement and started planning this enormous wedding, nobody was surprised that the whole family was expected to show up and make it magical. What I didn't know was that I wasn't being invited to celebrate. I was being invited to be collected. The venue was one of those places that's designed to make you feel like you're inside someone else's fantasy. Vaulted ceilings, flowers everywhere, mirrors that reflected everything back at you twice. I arrived alone, found my name on a place card near the far edge of the room, far enough from the main table that I'd need to lean to see Sophia clearly. And I told myself to just get through the night. Sophia looked beautiful, I'll give her that. She was lit up from the inside, laughing loudly, pulling everyone into her glow. My mother trailed close behind her, proud in a way she'd never been proud of me. My father worked the room like it was a networking event. Nobody introduced me as anything. When guests asked what I did, my mother would smile and say, "Oh, Vanessa is very hands-on," like she was describing a mild personality quirk. An older cousin leaned over during cocktail hour and said, "That must wear you out, dear," the way you'd say it to someone who'd chosen a very unfortunate hobby. I stayed polite. I always did. Dinner hadn't been served yet when my father materialized at my shoulder. Marcus didn't sit. He stood behind my chair, one hand resting on the back of it, and he scanned the room like he was checking who was watching. "Big night," he said. "It is," I agreed. Then my mother appeared beside him. Diana had this voice she used when she wanted a conversation to sound casual, but had already decided how it was going to end. "We just need a quick word," she said. "Won't take long." And then, while the wedding music played softly and the waitstaff refilled glasses around us, my parents told me their plan. Sophia was starting a new chapter, they said. She needed stability. She needed something solid to build on. And I already had something solid. I waited, kept my face still. "We just need you to sign the property over to her," my mother said, her voice dropping like we were discussing something delicate. "On paper. Nothing dramatic. She and her husband will take care of it." The room kept moving around me, but I felt very still. "What happens to me?" I asked. My parents looked at each other, that look, the one that meant the question wasn't worth answering. "You're single," my father said. "You don't need that much space. You're resourceful. You'll figure something out." And there it was. They weren't asking me to help my sister. They were looking at my house, my 4 years, my ramen dinners, my sore hands, my Nana Ruth's land. And they were doing math. I was the asset. Sophia was the priority. And in their calculation, I was supposed to simply subtract myself from the equation. I looked across the ballroom at my sister laughing with her soon-to-be husband. Then I looked back at my parents. And I said no, not loudly, not with a speech, not with any of the anger that was quietly boiling underneath my ribs. I just said it the way you state a fact. "I'm not transferring my house." My mother's smile disappeared. "Don't be difficult." "I'm not being difficult. I'm being clear." My father's jaw tightened. "You're being selfish." "I built that house," I said. "That land came from Nana. You had nothing to do with it." "Everything you have," he said, his voice dropping into something hard and cold, "traces back to this family. Don't forget that." "I haven't forgotten anything," I replied. "That's kind of the problem." People nearby had gone quiet. I could feel eyes on us. I stood up, picked up my bag, and said calmly, "I'm not giving my home away, not tonight, not ever." I turned to walk out. I heard him move before I understood what was happening. Fast. Sudden, the sound of something cutting through air. Then nothing. I came back slowly, in layers. Sound first, a high, unbroken ringing. Then light, too sharp, too bright, then the cold of the marble floor against my cheek. Then pain. Spreading from the side of my head down through my neck and shoulder. I'd been hit. When my vision cleared enough to focus, I saw the bronze centerpiece on the floor a few feet away. One curved edge was dark, my blood. My father was still standing. His chest heaved. His eyes were wide, and for just a second he looked almost shocked, like he couldn't fully process what he'd just done. Then his gaze found me on the floor, and whatever softness had flashed there vanished. "You don't walk away from me," he said. His voice was too loud for the room, too raw for the occasion. "You don't turn your back on your family." I tried to speak, nothing came. Then a figure stepped between us. Sophia's fiancé, James. He stood very still, very straight, putting himself directly in front of me. He didn't raise his hands. He didn't shout. He just looked at my father the way you look at something that needs to be stopped. "Step back," James said. "This isn't your business," my father told him. "It is now." Security reached us within seconds. Someone called for an ambulance. My mother stood to the side, shaking, but not because I was hurt, because the scene was public, and there was no way to pretty it up. As they lifted me onto a stretcher, The lights of the ballroom streaked above me. The last thing I heard clearly before the doors swung shut was James's voice, firm and certain. "Nobody touches her." At the hospital, they stitched my head and confirmed a concussion. I lay in the exam room staring at the ceiling, running through everything in a strange, slow loop. I kept hearing my own voice saying no, kept feeling how steady I'd been in that moment, and I couldn't make sense of how something so quiet had ended with me on a stretcher. James came to the hospital. He sat down without making it dramatic, and he told me things that reordered everything I thought I'd understood. He'd noticed problems in the weeks leading up to the wedding, finances that didn't add up, money that was described as handled but clearly wasn't. He'd quietly hired someone to look into it. The debt was substantial. Sophia had been moving balances around, hiding it, and my parents had been helping her do it. The plan to take my house wasn't just about giving Sophia a foundation to start her marriage on. It was about using my property to cover what they'd all been scrambling to hide. "They weren't helping her build a life," James said. "They were trying to clean up a mess with your house as the mop." He told me he wasn't going through with the wedding. He'd ended the engagement that night. Then he looked at me and said something I've carried ever since. "You didn't cause any of this, Vanessa. You just refused to be buried by it." The footage spread fast. Someone had filmed the moment my father swung. Another clip showed James stepping in front of me. By the next morning, the video had moved further than any of us anticipated, and my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. I gave my statement, plainly, without dramatics. I handed over what I had and let the process move. And it moved quickly. The evidence was clear. The witnesses were many. The story my family had always depended on, that things could be quietly smoothed over if everyone stayed silent, finally ran out of room. I sat in the courtroom weeks later with my hands folded and my shoulders back. I watched as the footage played. I listened as the judge spoke, not dramatically, not emotionally, but with this quiet precision that felt more powerful than anything loud could have. She talked about accountability, about the difference between family and ownership. My father received consequences, real ones. My mother's apologies came later, but they all had holes in them, places where accountability should have been, but wasn't. Sophia went silent, completely. And in the absence of her voice, I heard things clearly that I'd been drowning out for years. The months after were the quietest of my life. And I mean that in the best possible way. The concussion healed slowly. Some mornings were still hard. Some nights the memory came back sharp when I wasn't expecting it. But every morning I woke up and walked through rooms I'd built with my own hands, and that steadiness was something nobody could negotiate away from me. My neighbor David became one of my constants through all of it. He didn't ask too many questions. He just showed up sometimes with coffee or company, and once, standing on my back porch watching the sun go down, he said, "The hardest part is over. You chose yourself. Everything else is just paperwork." He wasn't wrong. A year out, I sit on my back steps in the early evening, watching the light fall across the walls I built. It's quiet here, the good kind of quiet, the kind that means you don't have to brace for what's coming next. I didn't lose a family that night. I'd never really had what I thought I had. What I found instead was the edge of myself, how far I'd bend, where I stopped, what I was actually made of. And what I learned is this: love doesn't ask you to dissolve yourself so someone else has more room. If someone is calling that love, look closer, because real love, the kind worth keeping, holds you up. And it doesn't ask you to hand over the house if you've ever had to fight for what you built, emotionally, physically, financially. I want to hear your story in the comments. And if this one hit close, subscribe so you don't miss what's next. If you like the story, please subscribe. our channel for more interesting stories. Thank you.